Good morning, folks. It's your Self Shift crew back for another Saturday morning podcast on a somewhat rainy, somewhat overcast, but nonetheless beautiful Saturday morning. You got Patrick here. We got Doug,
Hey, everybody.
Derek,
Hey, everyone.
and yet again, we have another very interesting topic. Follow your own path. So we're going to frame it up like we usually do with a couple of quotes, and then we're going to share some personal experience, some personal guidance, some pragmatic advice, and just really get into it. So as you guys are aware, I don't like to quote Steve Jobs. I'd much rather quote Bill Gates, but this one is actually a pretty good one. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Another one to kick it off here is from the Buddha. Your work is to discover your work, and then with all your heart to give it yourself to it. So very powerful things. And I'm going to relate this, and I'm sure Derek and Doug will as well, into personal experiences that I've had and that type of thing. But like most of the subjects that we cover here on Self Shift, as we try to bring advice to our community, this is very easily said. There's a lot of really good quotes about it. It's a little more difficult to implement in your life over time. So with that being said, let's kick it around. Let's get some initial thoughts. I will tell you from my perspective, following my own path and following my mission and getting on my mission was a struggle for me for many, many years because I'm very much, and even still am, a conformist. I don't break rules. And I typically follow what I think the path, or historically have followed what I think or what I thought people thought my path should be, not necessarily what I thought my path should be. And maybe that's too extreme. I'm very proud of what I've done and the life that I have and that type of thing. But I have probably been a little bit conservative when I should have taken a few more risks earlier on in my life, and I've corrected that over the last 5 or 6 years. Doug, any initial thoughts for you?
Yeah, I think similar to you, I think it's been a struggle for a while, and I think really it took getting into my 40s and other things for me to finally realize, hey, quit measuring my happiness by what I think society measures happiness by, or quit comparing myself to others to try to decide whether or not I'm being successful and those kind of things. That to me, it really took becoming unhappy because I made choices based on wanting to do better than others in a way I was measuring like wrongfully. And and since then I've been able to be more content and happier because I'm more focused on like understanding that I'm happy as long as I have certain things going on in my daily life and other things. I think we had a conversation after one of our episodes about understanding your values and like ways to go about trying to understand your values. And I think that was a really big breakthrough for me is being more aware of my values equate to my happiness. I'm not saying this very well, but my values equate to my happiness, and focus more on that rather than comparing myself to others or comparing myself based on what I think, culture or society or whatever finds valuable. So that's my initial thought.
And actually, I think you covered several key things very articulately, actually. And something we don't say on this channel a lot, which we need to, is that you said as you got older into your 40s, you started discovering this. So, as a reminder to folks listening to this, the reason we do this is to help people end their suffering, live a better life, live a happier life without waiting to the age that the three of us had to get to figure all of this stuff out with study and meditation and that type of thing. We want people that are certainly people our age, but folks that are younger, to learn from this. This is the reason us seasoned individuals on the Self Shift crew do this work, is exactly what Doug just said. Derek, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to add a quote here. I just thought of it off the top of my head. But discovering your path resides only in your willingness to explore. And the exploration is the ups and downs, the circumstances, the situation, the traumas, the woundings, the judgments, the criticisms, all those things that we experience in our life is part of that exploration and discovering your path forward. And I think that we often, as you pointed out, Patrick, earlier, we often live in this like cocoon at times where we don't want to get outside of it because we've been hurt or wounded, and we just like allow that fear of going back into a new opportunity or exploring something different. We allow it to hinder it because of the past and the experiences we've had that's not been so pleasant. So I know for me, I think that would sum up, the path is yours to explore and discover. And if you're not willing to do it, the path will your journey will be what it is, and it'll be narrow and it'll be shortchanged, and you'll have lots of regrets.
Yes, and we learn from our regrets. And so that goes into something that's been really key for me. And this took, again, a long time for me to really appreciate this, but nothing is wasted if you learn from it, right? I used to be the type of guy, if I worked hard on something and it didn't turn out the way I needed it to turn out, I was like, damn it, I've wasted X number of hours, X number of weeks, X number of months. And that is simply not true. You learn from those experiences and you grow as you discover your path as well, right? And it sounds very cliche, but your path is unique to you. Right? We're all unique, folks with unique DNA structures and that type of thing. And so going down this path, and we're not advocating for quitting your job and going to live on a mountaintop. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is connect to who you really are, understand your values, accept what is, and take committed action based upon those values. And before we get into some of the pragmatic advice that all of us has learned from this, is the key things that it really provides after you get over that initial hump, because it is uncomfortable. I remember, when I made my big career change, 3 years ago at this point, how my family would react to that, because they are very, you work at a place your entire life, you retire, you whatever, and the concept of taking what you're really, really good at, going on a mission, and really discovering something is a foreign concept, or was to my parents and my siblings and that type of thing. But what it does provide, right, once you get over that initial hump, and it's uncomfortable, folks, it really is uncomfortable, but growth is uncomfortable, right? Pain and growth are required. I'm sorry, pain is required to grow. But then you get into personal fulfillment, right? True authenticity, right? And understanding what your passion and your mission is and how you can have an impact. Because if you're not truly on your mission, your impact positively to those around you is not completely fulfilled. If you're living somebody else's life, you're not truly delivering the value that you can if you're being authentic, being on your mission, and that type of thing. Now, with that being said, as you guys are aware, I do I have role models, right? And I've used role models my entire life, and I still do as a 56-year-old dude. Use role models for looking at things that people do well and how people achieve the best they can achieve. So some of the folks that we look at now, look back in history, are just iconic, like Albert Einstein or Oprah Winfrey or Leonardo da Vinci, folks that we learn about in school and are quoted very frequently and stuff like that. But back in the day, these folks were radically on their own mission, right? Discovering things and doing things and going on a path that a lot of folks thought were, lunacy and just delusional and stuff like that. So, but if you look at the years that, Albert Einstein, devoted to coming up with his theories of relativity and some of his other, very influential works in physics, he was ridiculed, right? Didn't get, couldn't even get into college and stuff like that, but stayed on his mission and achieved really good things. Another one, like I mentioned before, is Oprah Winfrey, right? Who had a lot of personal trauma and that type of thing, but went on to become, probably the greatest media mogul person maybe in the history, right? With her shows and the impact that she's had, and think about the careers that she's launched, right? But people thought she was off her rocker when she said she was going to create, a TV show and go down this path and start her book clubs and all that kind of stuff, which have impacted the lives of many, many others.
I would say Martin Luther King would be a great one to look to, that had a lot of wisdom and blazed a trail of overcoming divide and just major turmoil in our country, to be a positive voice through that. I think he did an excellent job as a role model of finding his path and fulfilling his path. I think Ronald Reagan would be one too. I always look to, that came from the movie stars through California to be president of the United States, and really blazed a trail of healing a lot of wounds in our country at the time that he took office. So those two, I would say, are two important role models for me that really made a significant impact and come from very unique and diverse paths, of rising to what they become as far as a leader in our country.
Yeah, those are really good ones. And I'm going to give you a personal experience on Ronald Reagan, right? And I can remember watching his inauguration back, early, mid 80s. At school. Guess I was in the eighth grade or whatever, watching the inauguration thinking, we're screwed, man. The country's going to hell. We've got a former actor as the president. Thinking back, I would do anything to have somebody with the caliber of Ronald Reagan, and his characters and his integrity. I was a doubter back in the day, but every time I land at Ronald Reagan Airport in D.C. or whatever, I look at the statue and think, thank goodness we had, this man's time as the president of the United States.
Yeah, and I just saw last night that Dennis Quaid is playing Ronald Reagan in a new movie to be released this summer. So we're all going to have to go watch it together, since he's becoming one of our favorite role models here.
Yep. Doug. Okay.
I'll come at it from a different angle. I was thinking about the fear of failure part. One of the hard parts about following your own path is fear of failure. And so there's that Michael Jordan quote that you'd have to go look for, but he talked about the number of games he lost, the number of times it was like 26 times he was asked to take the game winning shot opportunity and missed. There's the story of him trying out for his high school basketball team and not making it. And in terms of following your own path, like, again, he knew what he was trying to accomplish. So he, even though the coach told him don't bother and other things like that, he followed his own path to kind of continue to work towards that success. What's yours, Patrick?
And again, we try to avoid cliche things here on the Shelf Show channel, but a lot of the stuff that we talk about is going to come together here, like as it relates to following your own path. Because in many ways, following your own path is a result of foundational things that we talk about on this channel, right? And I'm just going to roll through them, and then I'm going to talk about how we all, or at least how I brought these things together to make a life change. And I'm sure you guys, I know you guys have as well. The first is you got to stop caring what others think, right? I'm not talking about being a bad individual. I'm just saying don't over-index on what others think. Don't let others' opinions or thoughts take higher precedence than yours. You are the instrument of your life, not them. Secondly, you've got to accept that some people will not understand. Others will not understand everything that you're doing or your mission. That can be very uncomfortable, especially if they're people that you respect. But it's going to happen, right? The other is, again, we want to be really careful. We're not telling people to quit their jobs and go live on a mountaintop. Do the research, create a plan, do the homework. This is not a passive activity. This requires action and movement and study and grinding and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Practicing detachment from outcome, right? Focus on what you can control. Focus on your mission. You certainly probably have outcomes that you want to see come, and hopefully they will, but you can't control all the variables that drive that forward, or that make sure that, or that determine if that's going to happen. Again, Doug, you talked about it, or Derek, just a second ago as well. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't plan for failure, but don't be afraid of failure. And this is something that just plagued the heck out of me, is that if I failed one time, even small, not even big, but just small one time, that I was a failure. And it took me, and I still struggle with it a little bit, but that's something that you've got to wrestle with. Be willing to take the risk and the failure, and have the integrity and character to move forward. So I know that that was a lot thrown out there, but as I was looking for a career change, career change is maybe not the right word. I'm still in the same field, but in a different space, in a much smaller organization, and doing things that really cause me to grow and stretch and that type of thing, is factor all of those in. Understanding that some people were not going to understand. Um, some people thought it was absolutely lunacy to live a career after 25 years, or retire after 25 years to go to a smaller organization. But understanding the risks, the rewards, the fact that it's up to me to, and I do have a responsibility to live the best life that I can for myself and for those around me, and take the calculated risk, take the leap forward, and that type of thing. And I did everything that I mentioned there. Played into some of it. Some of folks were so supportive and thought it was the greatest thing ever. Some were like, "What are you doing, dude?" And I had to apply all of those rules. And even to this day, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. We work hard, we grind every day, but there's no guarantees in life. And so, just, kind of walking through that. But I've got to remind myself of the things that, I just mentioned there, as it relates to making sure that I am becoming the best version of myself and providing the most value to myself and those around me, to the community, and all that kind of stuff. And the key thing is, trust yourself, right? When times are hard and I'm questioning even myself, knowing that, hey, dude, trust yourself, put some confidence in yourself and move forward. And even in my lowest points, reminding myself, of those key concepts and that type of thing, grinding through it, I come out better on the other side. Derek.
Yeah, I want to tell a little story about a powerful moment in my life when the path was very vibrant and connected back to light, because I was living in quite a season of darkness. I remember sitting at the Navy Pier in Chicago and sitting there right by the USS Chicago anchor that had been refurbished and repainted by a group of Navy sailormen that recouped that and hoisted it up there. And I was sitting there watching the sunrise on Navy Pier, and right there on the water, you can see the sun on the horizon because of the way we were positioned. You can see the sun just basically coming up just on top of the water. We've all seen that, be it at ocean or whatever. And I remember just, in that powerful moment of healing and rising from the darkness, I remember just looking out at that water and that sun coming up, and I could see the path. I could see that path that just formed right straight out across the water. And it was as though in a moment I felt like I could just get up and jump in and just run across that path to the light of that sun. And so I feel like, that's to me is the path. That's the path that every human being is aspiring to, is the path back to the light from all the failures, all the trauma, all the woundings, all the things that's come forth that brought negative energy, to darkness. That's the path that we all aspire to live and to run to. And so that's what I want to say is, I think is powerful, is finding that thing that's going to anchor you on your journey, that's going to allow you to run that path to the light. That's what I feel like is what we all aspire to have, and we long for that in our hearts and souls.
Powerful. Doug.
Yeah, I mean, just relating it back to my own journey, following my own path. Again, early on, I was really bad about comparing myself to others and, doing it in a way that I thought that's how I would understand whether or not when I look back on life, I would feel like I was successful. But, along the career journey, I made a bad decision where I took a role that was a promotion to a level that I had not gotten to before. And I took it purely, really for the title. I really didn't think through, like, hey, on a daily basis, are you going to enjoy what you're doing? Are you working with people you're going to enjoy working with? And what kind of stress are you introducing into your life, and those kind of things. And I took it for the wrong reasons. And it was really the trigger point for me to step back and start to, like, think about the factors of happiness and those things. And it was really the time that I started to research happiness. And I think probably one of the first times I talked to Patrick about meditation and things like that. And it was really sort of a pivotal moment because, and I think that's what you had. It was a pivotal moment because I started to learn how to kind of step back and observe what I was doing and be somewhat of a student of my own behaviors, but ultimately really get more interested in what's involved in daily happiness and what makes me personally happy. What are the things I enjoy doing with my time? Where should I invest my time and growth and all those kind of things? And honestly, it was it was difficult to undo that mistake, and it took a while for me to get to a place that I was more happy on a daily basis. But and now, ever since then, I've been much better at thinking, evaluating more of my internal opinions and thoughts around decisions about things than the external, right? And so being more focused on that, and comparison, you got to be careful with comparing yourself to others. You got to be more observant of yourself and your values, and you got to factor all that into the choices you make. And then when things don't go well, you got to be resilient, and circle back and just keep forging ahead until you get to where you want to be. And one other thought I wanted to make, but of late, we're all on this journey, right? And I've been on the event I was talking about was 10 plus years ago, and I've been a student of all these things. Like right now, one of the things I'm kind of learning to do is to step back in situations and saying, am I content? And that goes back to, again, following your own path. Is I would have measured my contentness, or whatever the right word is. I would have measured that more based on like what I thought others thought.
Yep.
And now it's like, no, like I'm very happy to be here in this moment talking to you guys. I'm happy to be, at dinner with my wife in that moment. It's having the ability to step back and think about, am I content? And that's my current journey, which I think fits into this topic of following your own path as well.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit on some really, really key points there, Doug. And I'm gonna riff on a couple of them. And the fact that you talked about meditation and being able to observe your thoughts. None of what we're talking about here today is possible if you can't get to that level, right? Because when you're fused with your thoughts, when you're fused with what other people think of you, or their opinions of you, or how people are going to look at me if I do this, you can't get beyond this. The ability to meditate, observe your thoughts, diffuse from your thoughts, because you're not your thoughts, right? They're just thoughts. They're like the weather, right? And the weather changes, is so key to this. And I think, at least I tend to assume that everybody understands that, but that's not the case. So if you take anything away from what we're discussing here today, and probably any of our self-shift podcasts, it's the fact that meditation and being mindful and present, and understanding that you can observe your thoughts, you're not your thoughts, is so key it's the underlying foundational stuff to all of this. And I can say, having known Doug for 25 years, is that watching your growth from those times 10 years ago, which was a very stressful time. I know it was for you, it was for a lot of folks, but you were in the crosshairs. Let's be transparent, right? In a new role that was just brand new to the organization, and your ability to get through that, and how far you've come is just monumental. So good stuff there. The other thing that I want to riff on is, and this, again, a little bit of a personal experience, is that, and Doug, you and I have certainly talked about this, is that waiting for the epiphany, waiting for the light, the clouds to part and the knowledge just to come. Patrick, this is what you should do. Or Doug, this is what you should do. Didn't happen for me, right? There were no epiphanies for Patrick. I discovered who I was, what my mission was, based upon work and life and moving forward and applying myself and meditation and that type of thing. And I waited for years for an epiphany, for a YouTube video, or for a book to tell me this is the secret of life. Now, a lot of the study that we all three have done, and others that are listening to this, have been completely foundational and monumental to moving forward. You've got to have that base understanding, but this is not a passive activity. You've got to apply the concepts, the meditation, the working out, the eating right, and all of that stuff. Everything that we've talked about today. Stop caring what others, or stop over caring what others think. Trusting yourself. You've got to practice that. It's not just part of it's, you certainly learn it from a book and from videos and stuff like that, but that in and of itself is not the work. Once you start grinding on it and working through it, it really helps. I remember I went on a weekend retreat alone by myself, waiting. I was sure by Sunday afternoon I'd have all the answers, and I didn't. And it's interesting that on the drive home from the center, there was I was listening to a YouTube podcast from Robert Greene, right? Who, he's written the 48 Laws of Power. I don't want to pretend that I'm a Robert Greene expert, but what he was explaining was he's had like 35 jobs or whatever, and he's done a lot of stuff, a lot of different experiences. And the work that he did and the study that he did and the life experiences that he went through made him who he was. And that's how he got to the point of writing some of the books, the 48 Laws of Power, which I think I have on the thing over here, and some other books. And he's quite famous at this point, but it wasn't, an aha moment. It was applying principles, working, defining yourself through your activities, your actions, your integrity, and your character. Sorry, that was a little bit of a ramble, but I think it's bringing some key points there together. And I know, folks, we're close on time here, so why don't we go around on a horn? Any last parting thoughts, and then we'll call it a day. Derek.
Yeah, I would just encourage all of us and the listeners to, unleash your imagination, anchor yourself, and run that path to your light, to the light that is out there that's calling you home. That's what I would say is the most important thing. The greatest gift you can give yourself is exploring and discovering yourself and what it is that's going to fulfill you and make you happy and bring contentment in your life. What Doug was sharing earlier.
Doug?
Yeah, I would just say, and I didn't do it, I'd get caught up in the daily things of family and life and work and all those kind of things, but spend some time like trying to really think about what you enjoy doing, where you enjoy spending time, why you enjoy spending that time, kind of try to discover a little bit about yourself. They say one thing is like, try to figure out, like, if you had free time, what would you do, right? And one way to think about that is when you wake up on a Saturday morning, how do you choose to spend your time? And I think we choose to make a podcast, but where we share our thoughts. But that's sort of an indicator of your values. Is if you have free time, what do you do with that free time? So just spend some time thinking about your own personal values and let that help you guide you along your own path.
Excellent. And I think you've got one more statement for us, Doug.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes, be kind to yourself. And I'm going to quote the greatest philosopher of the 21st century, Ted Lasso. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not judgmental. We should probably have a podcast episode on that. And just one more quote before we close it out here today. I'm full of quotes today. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill, my friends.
Wow.
Have a great one, and we'll be back next week for another podcast. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.